Hello, teacher. Good evening. Excuse the delay.
Hello, good evening, Nicolas. Don't worry. Let's take advantage of this time. I'm sharing my sound. This time, I'm only going to share the sound of my computer. All right. You're going to listen to a lecture, and I'm going to be pausing the lecture. All right. I don't know, after 30 seconds, 1 minute. You need to pay attention to that, Nicolas, because I'm going to ask you some questions. So if you want to open a Word document or if you want to take notes on your notebook, do it, please, because it's going to be important to remember some information. All right. So let's begin. This is going to be the first lecture. Let's pay attention, please. We're going to use lectures from TOEFL practices so that we get used to that. And also because these lectures are very interesting and it's important to get used to this vocabulary. So let's begin. You're going to let me know if you can listen to this first, Nicolas.
And some of the works of one of America's...
Okay, can you listen to that very well?
Yes, teacher, I can do it.
Okay, very good. So let's begin, please. Again, 1 minute at least. I'm going to stop. Take notes if you want, or write information on your Word document. Let's begin, please.
We're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life. Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had just been published, and the publication of her collection of poems, Ariel, had just been agreed. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet. But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature. Since this time, the fascination and intrigue with her work has continued to grow. Very few modern poets have captured the popular imagination as much as Plath, even to the extent that in 2003, a movie was made about her life and her...
Up to that part, because I think, well, she's going to continue and continue. So before going and learn more information about this person, what can you tell me about this part, Nicolas? What were you able to understand?
We heard about a female mode. I don't know, specifically in this year, 1963. I'm not sure. And in the audio, we could appreciate how year by year this business has been growing up.
All right, so let's try to understand something. Is this lecture talking about what specifically? What do you think that this is talking about? Is this about a person? Is this about a business, as you said? So what is the topic of this lecture, the first part, Nicolas? What do you say?
About female production or something.
Okay, so let's try to listen one more time. It's going to be about one specific thing. It's at the very beginning.
Okay.
Today we're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the
All right, so the answer is there. So what are they going to talk about?
Sylvia Plath. I don't know.
There you go.
Yes.
Yes. It's okay. That's exactly. So this is going to be a female, and this is a poet. This is a writer. So this is a person. They are talking about a person, a woman whose name is Sylvia Plath, right? Good. So we're going to talk about Sylvia, and she's a writer, right? A writer. That's very important. Let's continue. We're going to go step by step.
Time of her death in 1963,
Right, time of her. What happened in 1963?
Sorry, teacher, I didn't understand very well that part.
Okay, we're going to try to get once again.
Modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia...
All right, it says time of her death. We're going to verify that.
Yes, her death.
Good, okay, good. Let's continue.
Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life. Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had just been published, and the publication of her collection of poems, Ariel, had just been agreed. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet. But it was
All right, so we have other information there. What are you able to identify in the last information that they are giving us?
And then a little brief, the audio talked us about presentation or productions that woman made.
Okay, and mainly, what is the main thing that she's writing? Is she writing novels? Is she writing fiction, science fiction? What kind of things is she writing?
I'm not sure, teacher.
Okay, we're going to go to that part. You're going to see it's over here, I think. Let's see.
Life chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet. But it
All right, so what do they call her? They call her a poet, right? So as a poet, the most things that she's going to write are poems, right? Poems. So that's what she's doing. She's writing poems and she's considered a poet.
A poet.
All right.
Yes.
Good. So let's continue. We're going to try to get some more information.
wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature. Since
All right, I'm going to play that again, Nicolas, but pay attention. You're going to tell me what happened after her death, at least and almost 20 years after her death. Something important happened. So once again.
Reputation as a first-rate poet. But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature. Since this time, the fascination...
All right, I know it's hard to get. It's one kind of a thing that she earned, but when she was dead, all right, after her death. So what do you get over that, Nicolas? Well, what happened after 20 years after she died? Anything that you can get.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead, Nicolas. It was a mistake.
Okay, teacher. I heard that her poems were collected poems.
Okay, good. That's important information. That's the name of the book, let's say, right? Collected Poems. And that, all right, that publishing, that thing won something. What is the thing that you can win when you write something interesting, Nicolas? Do you know the name of some things that you can win when you are a good writer, for example?
I don't remember it right now.
Okay, or in any kind of competition, any kind of contest, let's say, what can you win? What can you earn when you are the best? What is that thing or those things that you can win when you are very good at something, Nicolas? What is the name of those things? There are many, many things that you can win, but what things do you remember that one can win when one is good at doing something, anything? From a competition, from sports to writing to whatever you want.
For a formal thing, it could be a novel. That novel.
What is novel? What is that thing? There is one more word that is missing there. What is that novel? What is the name of that thing?
Nobel prizes.
Okay, good. Prize, exactly, right? The Nobel Prize, good. So in writing, they have something similar that is the Pulitzer, all right? The Pulitzer Prize. So that's what she won, but she won that when she was dead, all right? 20 years after her death, the book Collected Poems won a Pulitzer Prize in 1982. All right, we have one more part. Let's keep trying to understand this part, please.
And intrigue with her work has continued to grow. Very few modern poets have captured the popular imagination as much as Plath, even to the extent that in 2003, a movie was made about her life and her intense relationship with husband and fellow poet Ted Hughes.
All right, what about this last part? What is important about this last part of the lecture, Nicolas?
The movie about her life in 2003.
Okay, what do they mention in the movie? There are some important elements that they mention. I'm going to play it again. Try to catch those important elements that they talk about or that they mention in the movie.
To grow. Very few modern poets have captured the popular imagination as much as Plath, even to the extent that in 2003, a movie was made about her life and her intense relationship with husband and fellow poet Ted Hughes.
All right, so what is that thing that they are mentioning in the movie? What kind of relationship are they talking about?
I heard that they mentioned something about the relationship, but I don't know what a specific relationship.
All right, is that a relationship with a friend, with a husband, with a brother? Who is that person that she's having a relationship with and it's being projected in the movie? Let's listen to that part once again.
Relationship with husband and fellow poet Ted Hughes.
Over there, what do you hear over there?
With his husband.
Husband, right? Exactly. Husband and fellow poet, it's like friends, right? Husband and friend, let's say, and partner, let's say, that's a better word. The husband and partner, that is a poet as well, and they are going to talk about that in that movie. Do you remember, to finish the conversation here, Nicolas, perhaps, what is the year in which the movie was released?
2003.
Very good, right? 2003. Great. And again, I think that's going to be it. I know that sometimes some elements are hard to understand, but I want to ask you that before finishing this conversation and this practice, Nicolas. We're going to do this in order to improve our listening skills, but what is the hardest part for you when you listen to lectures like this, Nicolas, to finish the conversation?
Good evening, teacher.
Hello, good evening, Carolina. We're going to start in some seconds, please. Okay?
I don't
Okay,
know.
teacher.
I don't know, teacher. There are some words that I can't understand very well.
All right, we're going to try to work on that. Again, I'm going to try to make you listen lectures about many kinds of topics, all right? So that you're able to at least get familiar little by little. And then I'm going to give you also some words that you can take into account to understand these kind of lectures better, all right? That's it then, Nicolas. Thanks for being in today's practice. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow in class.
Thank you, teacher. Bye-bye. Bye, Carolina.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nico.
All right, so hi, good evening, Carolina. How are you? Is everything okay?
Good evening, teacher. Yeah, it's everything good. Thank you.
Great, that's great to know, Carolina. So one thing that is very important, don't forget, if you didn't do it yet, don't forget to watch yesterday's class. It's important because I'm explaining all the important details about the criteria that you need to take into account for the in-class activities. Everything is for Friday. The in-class activities, the first oral presentation, everything that I take into account, from turning on the camera, using the PowerPoint presentations to work on that, and those sort of presentations that I mentioned, and some other details. So try to take a look at that. If you have any questions, tomorrow is going to be a good day to ask those questions. And also, it's important to watch the class, because it's important that you see that at the end of that class, we had one activity. And if you want to have that score related to in-class activities, that is recording, all right? Everything is going to be recording this course. So it's important that you watch the class, that you listen to those instructions, and that you record what is asked to be sure that you're going to have that score to the end of this week. All right, do you have any questions related to that, Carolina? Let me know, please.
No, teacher, thank you. I'm going to watch the video as soon as I can, and I do also the homework.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you, Carolina. So let's start with the practice. Now, I'm not going to share my screen. Everything now is going to be about listening. So I need you to pay close attention to this. If you want, please, you can take notes. If you want, you can use a Word document or use whatever you want to take notes, because it's important that you can have that information, that you can retain that information to afterwards give me a summary of everything that you were able to understand, or you are able to answer to some questions that I'm going to ask you after that. All right. Do you have any questions before starting with the lecture? Let me know, please.
No, teacher, it's okay.
Okay, good. So I'm going to be pausing the lecture at some specific parts. Let's begin then.
Today we're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life.
All right, until that part, because I think it's important that first we are sure that we get the main idea and what this lecture is going to be about. What can you tell me about this part so far, Carolina? What are we going to talk about? What are we going to be listening to? And what is the main thing in this lecture?
Well, teacher, I hear that we are going to talk about life and works, and then she said about female poets, and then start to talk about Sylvia. I think she's one of the poets.
Good, very good, exactly. And actually, we're going to talk about a female poet, and that's going to be Sylvia, right? So this lecture is going to be about Sylvia. Now, there is one important date. Pay attention to the date, and you're going to tell me what happened, all right, in that year. Let's listen to that once again.
Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life.
All right, so what is that important year, and what happened there, Carolina? Were you able to hear that one?
Yeah, I hear that in 1963 she died, and I think she said something that she died when it was the best point of her career, maybe.
Okay, good, good. I think we're doing a very good job, Carolina. Great, let's continue. I'm going to keep playing.
Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had just been published, and the publication of her collection of poems, Ariel, had just been agreed. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet. But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
All right, up to that part, we have some important events or elements that happened or that she's mentioning. What can you tell me in this part, Carolina?
Well, she said that she writes her first book called The Bell Jar, I think, something like that. And it was a collection of poems in which mentioned some aspects of her personal life, also about her reputation. And it says that it was really famous during the last year of her life. But I think it increased the popularity of the book in 1992. I think after a few years of her died.
Okay, good. Of her death, right? Of her death. Okay, something else happened in 1982. The first thing that you mentioned is the bell jar. Good, that's one thing. But afterwards, we have these collected, right, poems. That's something else. What is the important thing that happened with that collected poems? Let's listen to that part once again.
Her a reputation as a first-rate poet.
Okay, it starts here, sorry. Let's pay attention to this specific part.
But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
All right, so what happened there? What important event is she mentioning there, Carolina?
She said that the book was published.
All right, and actually, perhaps, but also, I actually, this is something that she published, then she died, and almost, or more or less 20 years after her death, right, something happened with this book, Collected Poems. I'm going to try to play once again. I know this word is different because you need to know what this means. For example, I'm going to ask you this one also, as I was doing with Nicolas, Carolina. What is that thing, or what is that something, let's say, that you can win when you are good at something? For example, when you are good at writing or when you are good at sports, what is that thing that you can win when you are very good?
I think maybe, how can I say, a reconocimiento?
Okay, it can be a reward, can be that one, but there is another word. For example, the novel. What is the novel? There's a word that describes what is the novel. And the novel in the sense that's something that you can win, right, when you are good. For example, novel in physics. How do you call to that thing in English?
Yeah, it is an award, I think, a premio.
Good, exactly, but we're going to use that one. And again, we're going to try to avoid the use of Spanish totally. The first one was very good. Award, reward, or you're going to call it a prize, right? In this case, we need that word, prize. So there is one kind of prize that this woman won. Let's pay attention to that part once again, and you're going to try to tell me, try to identify the word that is describing that prize.
Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
Okay,
Published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
all right, what do you get there? What's the name of this prize? And in what field?
I heard that it's something about collecting poems. I think it's a prize related to that.
Yes, we're good. We're good. Try to get the name of the prize. I'm going to help you out. It's over here.
Published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
All right, so it won the Pulitzer. All right, that's the name of the prize, but you're doing good. Collected Poems, right, in 1982 won the Pulitzer Prize, right? And in what field? It was not physics, right? It was not, I don't know, other kind of field. It was in literature. So she won the Pulitzer Prize in literature and for literature 20 years after she died. All right, let's keep going.
Since this time, the fascination and intrigue with her work has continued to grow. Very few modern poets have captured the popular imagination as much as Plath, even to the extent that in 2003, a movie was made about her life and her intense relationship with husband and fellow poet Ted Hughes.
All right, up to that part, what can you tell me about this new part, Carolina?
Well, it says that since that happened, a lot of other women maybe have an example. And also it says that her successful growth, maybe her popularity. And also it says that the people did a movie about her life and her personal aspects. I think about maybe her husbands, I think.
Okay, good. Very good, right? In 2003, they made a movie, right? And they were talking about her relationship with her husband. That's correct. Good. Only one more part. And I'm going to ask other kind of questions, but only one more part. You explain that one, and we're going to talk about the lecture itself.
To understand the continued growth in interest in her work, we have to look at the issues which her life and work address. As Susan Bassnett writes in her book on women writers, dying as she did in 1963, Sylvia Plath never knew that so soon afterwards the problems of what and how women write was to become such a crucial matter, and was to be debated by so many other women. So Sylvia Plath was a woman writing about women's issues before they were recognized as being of any importance.
All right, up to that part, I think she's mentioning something really interesting. What can you tell me about this last part, Carolina?
Yeah, it says that a part of the book and also her successful, it also mentions about her issues of her life and work, and maybe some of the problems that women have to experiment when they write. Also mention about she didn't knew, or maybe the society didn't knew for what and how women write. I think maybe mention kind of other women took her as an example of how can achieve their goals, and I think the society never knew before of the importance of female writers until she has those prizes.
Okay, good. That was a very interesting explanation. I agree with you in many of those elements. Actually, I'm not going to say any of those details that are missing over there because it was very good. Just be careful with this one. They or she didn't know, right? She didn't know, they didn't know. And also other women, right? Other women were influenced or something like that. So be careful with that plural, the pronunciation of the plural form of woman, women, and the conjugation of that one. Hello, good evening. Majo, give me please 1 second. I'm going to finish this one and we'll start with you.
Okay, don't worry.
Okay, good, perfect. So that's it, Carolina. I don't know if you have any final questions. And if you can give me a short comment before finishing, Carolina. What was the hardest part for you working with this lecture? I know that you did it very good, but what was the hardest part? And do you have any other comments before finishing? Let me know, please.
Well, I think the topic was really interesting. I think the hardest part of the lecture, or sorry, of the listening, was the name of the prize. I didn't catch that, and I think the rest was okay.
Okay, very good. And it was okay. That was a lecture, right? A lecture is when someone is presenting a topic. It can be a university. In this case, this was a lecture, so it was good. That's it then, Carolina. Thanks for being in this conversation, and I'll see you tomorrow in class. Don't forget to watch the class, please, to understand all the criteria that I'm taking into account for this course, and to know what the assignments are for Friday. Okay?
Okay, teacher, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Good night. All right, now once again, I'm sorry, Majo, it's 2 minutes late. I'm 2 minutes late. So how are you? Is everything okay?
Hi, teacher. Everything is great. Thank you. And you?
Great. Everything is fine, Majo. Thanks for asking. So let's begin. All right. Now, as you know, this course is speaking, listening. So I'm not going to share my screen this time. I'm only going to make you listen my computer sound, because I'm going to play a lecture for you. Of course, not entire lecture. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Pay attention, please, Majo. You need to take notes. If you want, you can use your notebook. If you want, you can use a Word document, but it's important that you can take some notes to answer some of the questions that I'm going to ask you, or to give me a short summary at the end of those parts in the lectures. All right, do you have any questions about that?
No, teacher.
Okay, good. So I'm going to play. Please, let's pay close attention to this one. I'm going to start playing this lecture. Let's begin now.
One of America's Today we're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life.
All right, up to that part, I'm going to stop there because that's the introduction, and it's important for me to know if the first part was clear, because that was the introduction and the main topic. So what is the first part about? What is this lecture going to be about?
Teacher, can we listen again, please?
All right, I'm going to play once again. So again, pay attention to mainly what are we going to talk about, all right, or who are we going to talk about, and some elements that are important for you. So let's begin once again.
Today we're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life.
All right, up to that part. So once again, what can you tell me about this first part?
I understand it's a very famous American poet.
Okay, good. What else do you remember? What's the name of this poet?
I don't understand, teacher, but maybe Sylvia something.
Good. It's okay. That's enough. Sylvia, right? It's Sylvia Plath, but it's okay with that one. Sylvia. Good. There was one date that was mentioned, Majo. Actually, not the date, only the year. Do you remember what's the year that was mentioned?
Yes, teacher. 173.
Okay, be careful with that one. If you say 100, it's different. Is it 100 or 1,000 that you're saying?
Yes, 1073.
Okay, if you're saying that 1,000, then you have to say
it's okay, or it's other year.
I'm confused because you're using that notation differently. That's why I'm going to tell you here, Majo. If you say 1,000, you need the entire date. 1,000, but what 1,000? Only 1,000 or 1,900 something? Do you remember that one? And if you say that,
no, teacher, I don't remember.
okay, so we're going to go, but you have two ways. It's going to be the different way. You can divide that in two parts, remember. You can say 19 or 18, 21, 1962. So let's pay attention to that one once again.
Okay.
Of her death in 1963.
Okay, so what is that one?
1,963.
Okay, 1,900, right? 63. Good, 1,960. But actually, you know that in years, as you were able to listen to, they are not going to say it like that. They are going to divide that in two digits, right? 1963, right? 1963. Good. But anyhow, all right, the date in the year is correct. What happened in that year? Do you remember what happened in that year?
No, teacher, can you put the play again?
All right, there you go.
At the time of her death in 1963.
The answer is over there. So what happened?
Yes, her death in 1,963.
Okay, exactly, right? In 1963, she died, right? She died. Good. Let's keep going then. So we have the main elements. Keep that in mind, Bajo. We're talking about a poet. She is Sylvia Plath. And she died in 1963. Let's keep going.
Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life. Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had just been published, and the publication of her collection of poems, Ariel, had just been agreed. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet.
Right. I know the information over there can be difficult to get, but I don't want details. I just want you to tell me, what were you able to understand in that specific part?
I understand a little, but she was very famous and she won a Nobel, and wrote dramatic novels.
All right, let's understand that one. Let's be careful because we have a Nobel Prize, right? But I think that they are not talking about the prize over here. They are talking about a genre, right? A genre. So she wrote one novel. Let's try to listen to that. Listen over here.
Success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life.
Okay, starting here.
Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had...
So her first novel, it's the first book that was a novel, all right, the genre, it was a novel. It was only her first novel that she wrote when she died, all right? And the name was The Bell Jar.
Had just been published. And
the bell, right? The bell, for example, you have bells in the church, right? In the church, that's a bell. Every Sunday you hear the bells, right? The bells are ringing.
Okay, the bell.
The bell jar. What is a jar? A jar is a container in which you put on some liquid, right? For example, a juice. You can put some juice in a jar and you can use the jar to give juice to other people, right? That's a jar.
Okay.
So the bell jar, right? That's the name of her first novel. And actually, and I think the only novel. Why? If this is her first novel, what is the type of books that she used to write, Majo, according to what you understand? Remember, what was she? What was her profession, in quotation marks, let's say, because it was not a profession, but it was something that she did. What is that thing that she did?
She wrote a dramatic novels or a one dramatic novel that novel won no that book or novel won her first novel.
No, actually, in this case, she didn't win, sorry, any novel, all right, any Nobel Prize. She didn't win anything, but they are mentioning that she wrote a novel, but only one novel. So what do you think that the other books that she wrote were about, Mao? If this was her first novel, what were the other books about? What do you think?
Teacher, but can you repeat again? Because I understand do not speak of other books. Please.
Okay. So no, it's just that actually it's not that this part that's something that she's saying, but remember, I'm going to play this again. Remember that she was a poet, so she didn't write novels. She wrote poems, and the books that she had were poems, right? Collection of poems, but they were not novels. All right, that was my question. It was only one novel because actually she was a poet and she used to write poems, not novels. All right, I'm going to play once again.
Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life. Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had just been published, and the publication of her collection of poems, Ariel, had just been agreed.
They are talking about that first novel, and they are talking about a collection of poems that she had.
Yes, that right? Her poems had many critics.
Okay, good. And were those critics positive or negative in this way?
Are positives or were positives.
Exactly. And remember, if you use positive as adjective, don't use the plural form, only the main form. So positive, right? The critics were positive. Good, good. Let's keep going. We're going to go together.
These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet.
What can you tell me about that part? Again, I don't want specific details, but what is important for you there?
Teacher, one more time, please.
Of course. Let's go. Over here. There you go.
Written during the last year of her life. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate
All right,
poet.
up to that
But
part, what can you tell me about that little part?
She maybe sold many dramatic poems, and her reputation was good.
All right, let's try to expand that a little bit. I'm going to go little by little.
year of her
So
life
first,
chronicle the
if you are going
traumas
to
which were
realize that one, they are going to talk about the period in which she wrote those poems. So when did she write those poems? Here's the answer.
just been agreed. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her
Most
life,
of those poems were written in the last year of her life. All right, when she was about to die, that's the period of time in which she wrote most of her poems. All right, that's the first important element, that almost all of the poems were written when she was about to die. All right, in the last year of her life.
chronicle the
So
traumatic developments taking
tell
place
me,
in her
Marco.
personal.
okay, teacher, so when she dies, sold more poems?
When she was about to die, right? Remember, she died. Do you remember the year in which she died?
1963.
Okay, good. It means that in 1963, before she died, that's the year in which she wrote most of her poems. All right, it means that she was with a lot of problems, perhaps with a lot of problems related to health, to the emotional side. I don't know. But
Teacher,
that
so after her death in 1923, she won awards, more awards.
exactly correct, and that's something that they are going to mention. That's correct, Mao. And actually, I'm going to play that part. I'm not sure if I did it, but 20 years after her death, she won a prize. All right, but she was dead. All right, but 20 years after her death, she won a prize. And that's something interesting. That's also a shame, right? It would have been great that she was recognized while she was alive, but it was not possible because of that fact, Majo, that she died in the same year that she was writing a lot of poems. So she didn't get to see all the, let's say, the important, all right, elements that she gave to, I don't know, literature in general. So I'm going to finish with this last, no, actually I'm going to mention only that she won that prize 20 years after her death. I don't know if you have any final questions because of this time. I'm going to ask you one more question, but do you have any comments or questions? Majo, let me know, please.
No, teacher, anything. It's so interesting that about her or she.
Okay, her, yes, about her. But my question goes here. What is the hardest part for you when listening to this kind of lectures, Majo? What was the hardest part?
The vocabulary, teacher.
Okay. In terms of the pace, I mean, is that kind of speaking too fast, or do you understand the words, but you don't understand the vocabulary? I mean, do you understand everything that this person is saying, but only the vocabulary, or is also the pace and the rhythm too fast for you? What do you say?
It's a little speed for me, but I understand.
Okay, that's good. It's good to know because I need to know those elements so that I can help you out with those details. That's going to be then, Majo. We're going to finish here. As I was telling to Carolina, all right, please, it's important that you watch yesterday's class to know the criteria, the important elements for this course, all right? That's very, very important. You have to do some things for Friday. That's also why you need to check that video and try to catch up with your partners by completing the assignments and having your oral presentation ready for Friday. All right, all the details are in the class, Majo, so please watch it. And if you have any extra questions, tomorrow in class, you can ask those questions. All right?
Okay, teacher, thank you. Goodbye.
Perfect, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, good evening, Melanie. How are you?
Hi, Luis. All good. What about you?
Everything is fine. Thanks for asking. So Let's begin with this practice, Melanie. We're going to work the same lecture that I've been working with your partners. Again, I'm not going to share my screen now. I'm only going to share the sound of my computer. So please, if you, I don't know, feel more comfortable when working with listening, taking notes, do it. All right, you can take notes on your notebook if you want. You can take notes on a Word document. Try to do it, please, because I'm going to be playing this lecture. I'm going to ask you general questions in the sense of what you were able to understand, and I'm going to ask you specific questions as well. All right, so get ready. And do you have something to take notes on, Melanie?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Let's begin, please, then.
Today we're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life.
All right, up to that part. These are lectures that you may find on the internet. Perhaps even you were able to listen to these before, but it doesn't matter. The main idea here is that we may have a conversation and you understand some details related to this lecture. So what can you tell me about this first part? What is this going to be about? And what is one important elements that you were able to get here, Melanie?
Okay, so I believe that the rest of the lecture is going to talk about this woman, Sylvia, who is an American female. And if I'm not wrong, he is involved in the world of politics or something like that. And yeah, about some success and recognitions in her life. I believe that about that is going to be the lecture.
Okay, good. There is only one thing that you're going to correct, all right? Only one thing. I'm going to play that again. And try to listen, please, to the year that they are going to mention. They are mentioning 1 year, and something very important happened there, all right? Something negative, perhaps, but something important happened there. So let's listen.
The father's dead, yes.
Okay, yeah, yes, we're talking about one, but let's verify if it was her father's. All right, let's see if that's correct. So once again,
We're going to look at the life and Today we're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life.
All right, so here go specific questions now. Is this related to politics or something else? And second, is that the year of her father's death or whose death? What do you say?
I think yes was the year of his father's death. And yeah, it's something about politics.
Okay, so we're going to get to that point once again. I'm going to repeat, but I'm going to now be with my microphone on to help you all in that part.
Look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets.
All right, poets, right? Instead of
Poets, okay.
Right, so we're talking about one poet, which is, in this case, Sylvia, all right, Sylvia Plath. Now, listen before the word or the year. That's very important.
Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in
At the time of her death, all right? So when they say at the time of her death, they are not talking about anybody else but her, right? So that year is the time in which she died, all right? No
okay.
one else but she, all right? Good. So that is very important. So now we have the context. I'm going to keep playing now, and I'm going to play more time, but take that into account, Melanie. We're going to talk about a poet, one very important poet, which is, right, Sylvia. Sylvia died in 1963. And they were talking about, right, the success and all those details. Let's keep going from that part, all right?
1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life. Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had just been published, and the publication of her collection of poems, Ariel, had just been agreed. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet.
Okay, up to that part, there's a lot of information, I know. You don't need to tell me all that information, but everything that you consider is important for you or that you will able to understand, please, Bella. Go ahead.
Well, now they are talking about the success that she has. Like she wrote a novel, she published a novel, at the first novel, I think. Then she wrote a lot of poems. She spent the last year of her life writing this. So, and then she mentioned something about that all these actions made her, gave her a kind of reputation in society, I think.
Good, very good. All right. I don't have very important observations in terms of the content, and that's the most important thing, all right, the content. But be careful with some things. You don't say, right, she public, right? Public to public something is going to be something else. You say that you publish something, right?
Publish.
And in this case, it's going to be in past, right? Some poems or a novel was published, right? And she published, perhaps. Good. And there was one more detail. I'm not taking that into account because I don't remember that detail. All right, sorry. But everything else is very good. We have one novel that they are talking about. Do you remember the name of that novel, Melanie?
I think something like Borush or something like that. But no, I didn't take note of it.
Okay, it's good. It's good. I'm going to play once again that part. And again, it's just for practice, right? To improve even more our listening. Let's listen to that part.
Her first novel, The Bell Jar.
What do you say? What is
The bell chart.
The bell jar, right? The bell space jar. That's the first novel. Good. And they are saying the first novel. Why? Because she's a poet. Mainly she writes poems, right? Not novels, but she also had some novels. Good. Now I'm going to continue from the next part. Over here.
Year of her life chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a poems which were
from this part. I'm going to play once again what you were able to listen to, and I'm going to keep going up to the next part.
Mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet.
All right, so that's everything that you mentioned, and everything is very good. Let's keep going.
But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
There we have a very important detail. What can you tell me about that last part, Melanie?
That after 20 years, of her death, some people, I don't know who, somebody published a collect of her poems.
Very good. And this, actually, the name that they give it's going to be Collected Poems, right? Collected Poems.
Collected poems, yes.
What happened to that, to Collected Poems? Because this is very important, very, very important. What can you win when you are very good at literature, for example, Melanie? What can you win when you're good at
that? Recognition, like, I don't know the name, but I believe that's something like awareness.
Okay, it can be an award, correct, a recognition, but you're going to call that a prize, right? A prize, in this case, prize. Do you know the name of the prizes that some writers can win, Melanie?
No.
All right, one of them is the Pulitzer. All right, perhaps you heard about that one, right? The Pulitzer. So let's listen once again, and you're going to verify that information, and you're going to tell me the year in which she won that one, or perhaps her works.
That her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature. Since this time, 82.
All right, sorry, the year, I didn't play the year, it was at the beginning, it's over here.
Poet. But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
All right, so once again, what can you tell me about that part, organizing all the main ideas?
That after 20 years, in 1982, a collected poem that she wrote won the Pulitzer, the prize for literature.
Exactly, literature, right in the first. Very good. So that collected poems, right, won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature 20 years after her death, right? Good, good, very good. I have one more thing over there. I think that's, let's continue, let's keep going. We have 1 more minute, but I'm going to play this. You explain what you were able to get, and I'm going to ask you one last question.
Since this time, the fascination and intrigue with her work has continued to grow. Very few modern poets have captured the popular imagination as much as Plath, even to the extent that in 2003, a movie was made about her life and her intense relationship with husband and fellow poet Ted Hughes.
All right, so what can you tell me about this last part?
That she was like an inspire for the rest of the women since then. And the work that she did before she died was continue growing with these other inspirations of other females writers. And then in 2003, there was a movie about her life and about the intensive relation with her husband, with Sylvia.
Very good. Very, very good. Only 2 details in terms of the words. Be careful for other women, right? Other women,
yeah.
only women. And if you use female as adjective, don't use the plural form. Other female writers, all right? Writers is plural, but female, it's only female, all right? Good,
Okay.
very good. All right, that's very good. My last question is the following. What was the hardest part for you in this lecture? Perhaps it was not that hard, or perhaps you felt that it was hard. How did you feel it, and what was the hardest part for you?
Maybe the first part, because it's kind of yeah, I don't know, maybe the first part, because you are not listening nothing in English, and then it starts somebody to talk and it's kind of fast, and then you catch the idea to switch your mind in English, and then that is one of my problems. So I think that was the most difficult for me.
Okay, good, good. Then we're going to try to do something to fix that one, because I realize that you don't have problems at all right? Some details that we're going to be working, all right, together, but we're going to see how you can avoid that kind of change, all right? So that you are with English, at least, all right, in a very little, let's say, percentage, so that when you will start listening to English, it's easier for you to change that switch. All right, so good. That's going to be it, Melanie. I don't know if you have any extra questions or comments to finish this up.
About this, not, but about the homework, but not the homework, the final presentation. So I'm going to send today my request to the administrative part, and I will let you know, please, Luis.
Perfect. Yes, do that, please, so that we can have your oral presentation on the day I told you, and you can do the other things so that you don't lose any kind of score. All right?
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Have a good night, Melanie. Thanks again, and see you tomorrow in class.
See you. Bye, Tiff.
Bye, Mila. Hi, teacher.
Hello, good evening, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm hungry, teacher. And you?
Oh, all right. I'm hungry too, actually. When I finish the conversation with you, I'm going to have dinner. So we have to wait these 15 minutes. Are you going to eat something afterwards?
No, teacher, nothing.
Oh, why? Why is that? Why aren't you not going to eat anything?
Because I was when I was buying gifts to my brother's birthday,
that is tomorrow. So yes, all the day.
Wow, well, that's a lot that happens, but I think that's not every day, right? This is one exception. But what about when you finish this conversation? Are you not going to eat anything afterwards?
Yes, teacher.
You are,
With
right?
my
Okay.
mom, yes.
Good. So we are both going to eat something. All right. So let's try to leave that aside. I'm also very hungry, but let's work. All right. Let's take advantage of these minutes, Stefania. We need to practice our listening skills. I know that you have very good listening skills, but let's practice to improve them even more. I'm not going to share my screen. I'm only going to make you listen to a lecture. Pay close attention to this, please, Stefania. I need you to take notes if possible. You can take notes using your notebook, or you can take notes using a Word document. All right. Are you ready to listen to the lecture and take notes?
Yes, teacher. Now I'm ready.
Okay, there you go. So please, again, pay attention. I'm going to ask you general questions, and I'm going to ask you for specific details. So again, if possible, if you listen to years, if you listen to names, if you listen to important words, write them down. Okay, let's do it.
Today we're going to look at the life and some of the works of one of America's finest modern female poets, Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963, Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life. Her first novel, The Bell Jar.
Okay, before going further, because they are going to start describing more details, but for me, all right, it is very important to know if you're getting the first part and we know what this is going to be about. So what can you tell me about this first part, Estefania? What is this lecture going to be about? What were some important elements that this person mentioned here?
Okay, teacher, the lecture is about Sylvia. I don't remember. A Pat girl, I think, and she was a poet and a scriptor. I don't know if it's correct. And she now is died, right? And I think is the most important.
Okay, good, good. Some important things. I agree with you. Everything is correct. You don't say she's died, right? Because died is one action. For example, she died, right? But you say she is dead, right? And yes, you're right.
Okay.
She's dead, right? She's dead. Why? Why is she dead? Because she died, right? Of course. Then, writer, right? She's a poet and a writer. And the last name was very close, Plath, all right? Is Sylvia Plath. Good. So here we're going to talk about Sylvia Plath, a poem, a writer. Who is that? Do you remember the year in which she died?
No, teacher, I don't remember.
No, I'm going to play once again. It's very easy. Let's pay attention to that part.
Okay.
Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963.
All right, so what's the year?
1093, something like that. I could listen.
Okay, but again, be careful with that one. Look at the chat. In the chat, I'm going to write what you told me.
Okay.
All right. That's the year that you told me, that you're telling me. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, I think it was 1090. I don't remember. I think 1953, maybe. I think I forget one number. That is 5.
Okay, good. So let's practice with numbers first, right? It's very important. So that's 1,000, right? If you add 100, that's going to be 1,100, right? If you want to add 900, 1,900, right? And then you're saying 1,993, right? So that's it, 1,993. Let's verify. One number is incorrect, but
53. Sorry.
yeah, tell me, Stephania.
53.
All right, so you're saying 1,953. Let's verify. I think you're missing this by 10 years. Okay, listen to this once again.
Sylvia Plath. At the time of her death in 1963.
All right, so it is 63.
63, yes, okay.
Exactly, right? So it was, and you can say you have those two ways, but it's not that common that you're going to listen to that. It's valid and it's correct, Stephanie. If you say 1,963, correct. But most people, right, and you know, English tries to be more efficient. They are not going to say all those words. They are only going to say 1963, right? 1963. There you go. So again, don't forget about this. It's going to be important for the next part. This is about Sylvia Plath. She's a poet, she's a writer, and she died in 1963. Let's continue.
Sylvia Plath was on the verge of the critical success and recognition that she had sought for most of her life. Her first novel, The Bell Jar, had just been published, and the publication of her collection of poems, Ariel, had just been agreed. These poems, which were mostly written during the last year of her life, chronicle the traumatic developments taking place in her personal life and were to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet.
Good. So I know that there's a lot of information there, Stefania. You don't need to give me all the details. I just want to know what were you able to understand over there?
Okay, I understand that her first novel, named Bell Jar or something like that, was published recently when she died, and her first collection poems she wrote the last year of her life.
Good, very good.
And her success, I don't know how to explain her success. Explain, I don't know. After she died, or something like that.
Good, good. It's okay. It's perfect. Actually, everything that you said is correct, Stephanie. All right, very, very good. They are talking about her first novel, right? The name is very close, Bell Jar, right? Use that G, jar, the Bell Jar. Good, the first novel. They're talking about poems, collection of poems, good, that she wrote, right? That she wrote the last year of her life. And yes, you can say exploded if you want, all right? But yes, that success, that recognition exploded or showed up after her death, right? So good, everything is very good. Let's keep going. The next part is going to be very important, but before going to the next part so that you understand those details, Stephanie, I have one question. Do you know what is that thing that you can win when you are good at writing, for example, literature, poems, or any kind of novels? What is that thing that you can win when you're good at it?
I don't know. I don't remember the name, but something like the best scripter writer. I don't know, teacher.
Okay, one more question. It's good. You're following a good logic, but what is, in general, what is that thing that you can win when you are good at anything? When you're good at sports, when you're good at math, what is that thing that you can win where you're good at something?
I don't remember the word. I think is oh, like I don't remember. No, teacher.
All right, good. I'm going to help you out, all right? It's one of kind of recognition, right? One award, but in this case, it's going to be
yeah.
a prize, right? A prize, award or prize, all right? Prize with Z, prize, all right? A prize. For example, you have the Nobel Prize, right? That's one kind of prize. If you're good at literature, you may win a Nobel Prize. But there are other kind of prizes. Do you know the name of other prizes, Estefania, other awards besides the Nobel?
Yes, but I don't remember the name.
Don't worry. I'm going to help you with that one. One of them is the Pulitzer. All right, Pulitzer, the Pulitzer Prize is one kind of prize that you can win when you are a very good writer, all right, for your content. Take that into account, all right? Take that into account and pay attention to the following information. It's very short, but as it is very short, I'm going to ask you in detail, all right? Pay attention to the next part, please.
But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
All right. I'm going to play that once again, and you're going to tell me all the details about that part, please.
Or to make for her a reputation as a first-rate poet.
Okay, in this part.
But it wasn't until 1982, almost 20 years after her death, that her posthumously published Collected Poems won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature.
Good. So what can you tell me about that part, Estefania? What details can you give me about it?
Okay, it's in 1982, 20 years after her died. She won a prize of, I don't know, literature, maybe. I don't remember. For her collection of poems.
Okay, very good. Be careful again with the first thing. After her, not died, died, it's a verb. Death is a noun, right? After her death. Good, very good. 20 years after her death, yes, her collection of poems that it is called Collected Poems, right? Won what kind of prize? The Pulitzer. The Pulitzer Prize in 19, right? Be careful, not 90, 1982, right? Good, very good. Now, I only have a couple of questions here. We're going to kind of finish here, all right? We're going to go with something because I need to eat as well. But one question, what is the hardest part for you when you listen to these kind of lectures, Tiffany? I know that you understand. I know that you get the idea, and that's very important, and that's very good. But what is the hardest part when you listen to these kind of lectures? What are the words or the parts in which you feel that you don't get all the ideas?
I feel that it is very quickly, because when you talk to me, I can understand you, because I think it's I don't know. I don't know how to say, but for example, yesterday when we listened a guy talking talking about a goodness and something like that. I think he talk faster, and I don't know, it's difficult to me understand all the words.
Okay, good. That's good to know. And again, yes, of course, I have to keep one kind of pace because everything that I'm going to tell you that I need to tell you right needs to be understood in a good way. But yes, you're right. All the lectures and all the information that I'm going to make you listening to, right, is going to be as fast as that. Why? Because it's very important to keep that pace and to listen and to understand that kind of pace, right? So we're going to practice that. Perhaps this was difficult, and yesterday's lecture was also difficult, right? It was about morality, goodness, ethics, right? In this case, this was about one poet, right, Sylvia. But again, we're going to try to listen to many kinds of lectures about many kinds of topics so that we can get used to those words, and also we can get used to that kind of speaking, right? The fast-paced speaking. But again, it's good to know that because I'm going to help you out with some strategies by telling me that. I don't know if you have any final questions or comments before finishing, Estefania. Let me know, please.
No, teacher.
Great. That's it then. Thanks for being in this conversation. Remember, please, it's very important to book the next conversation because they need to see that evidence. Just that. Now we can go to eat something. All right. Have a good night, Estefania.
Thank you, teacher.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye-bye. Good night.